Welcome to our second day of the Agbiz Grain Symposium for grains and oilseeds. Yesterday our attendance was 356 attendees that was online and people that joined us here in the room. So especially a warm welcome for the people that's joining us here today in the room. Welcome to our panel members and Chris Sturgis, that will be our facilitator. Chris, we're looking forward to the panel discussion, which you will elaborate a little bit later on for what we're going to discuss today in our session. So I just would like to introduce Jannie de Villiers, that's going to handle the opening for us today. You all know Jannie. Jannie is one of our former CEOs of Grain SA and NMC. So over to Jannie.
Good day. I'm often very much challenged, to describe my emotions about all the things that's happening in the world, and especially in South Africa, being a citizen of this country. And in my search for, how do we deal with this? How do we word and describe our emotions? I came about this word of languishing. And being English my second language, I had to go and find a dictionary and try and understanding what does that exactly mean. And it says that languishing is when you're failing to make progress, or there was a lack of success. Is something that's also described here. And for us in agriculture, there's also some references to a crop that is wildered or wild, verdor of verdroog sê ons in Afrikaans, oes wat afgaan. And when you have an emotion like this, you sometimes can get dumped into, going backwards and not understanding exactly where you are. So languishing also means you're not actually flourishing, but you're also not in a depression. You're sort of an in-between thing. And that in-between thing spiritually, you can actually, you can become passive, or, you sort of lukewarm. You're not moving forward and you're not moving backward. There's also another word that you can describe it, almost you become emotionally numb. And this is what I want to talk to you about today specifically. Proverbs 29 verse 18 reads, "Where there's no vision, the people perish." And I think this is the point that I want to make is if you've got a better and a clearer view of the future and a better understanding of that picture, it will give you, an emotion that you don't get numbed, that you don't become languish in your emotions moving forward. So how do one look at, if you look at your spiritual life, how is this thing actually affect you? You can maybe just feel even in your day job that you just arrive there and you're just doing what is necessary to get the day through, and you're not really moving forward. There's no drive specifically. You are seeing people in need, but you're not really moved to start helping them. And you're passive in your community. Your prayer life is almost like a tape recorder. You put it in every morning and you say a few words, or every day is almost like the same thing. There's no progress, there's no intensity in all of that. So, you find people will read scripture, but they will only read the nice parts, if I can call it that, about the grace and so forth, and the forgiveness, but not necessarily the, how do you tackle the high hills and what do you do when you're in the desert. So there's a few things that I have learned over the years that you can do to prevent yourself from becoming in this in-between type of state. Sometimes you have to sit down with a friend and just share again the long version of how you actually became a Christian or get saved, or about your calling. So you can just share some of those sort of thoughts with them. To do something good to somebody else is always helpful when you have these type of emotions, and to maybe, put a list together of all the issues and just leave it with the Lord so that you don't get concerned about all of them and it keeps you worrying or lying away at night. And practically block out some time that you can spend alone and just try and find a better way and a new way for you to actually move forward. I was actually also surprised to find this word of languishing in the Bible, and there's a beautiful scripture in Jeremiah 31 and verse 25. It says, "For I," this is the Lord speaking, "satisfy the weary soul, and I replenish every languishing and sorrowful person." So it's very important that we trust the Lord in doing that, because languishing is something that's always sort of connected to actually going backwards if you read the scriptures properly. And then I want to conclude with a fantastic quote that I read the other day that Mark Batterson said. I said, "It is toxic to believe that God wants to use us in this world and send us to safe places to do easy things at convenient times with nice people." Can I just read it again? It said, "It is toxic to believe that God wants to use us in this world and send us to safe places." Think about South Africa, to do easy things. Think about agriculture at convenient times, weather doesn't have times, with nice people. Now, let's not discuss the nice people part today, but this is really something that we have to trust the Lord, that not everything is just downhill and you know, fine and maanskin and rose stuff. We have to consider the hills that we have to climb. We have to consider moving forward from a position of in-between to serve the Lord. Let's just have a short prayer. Lord, thanks that we can trust you, who wants to use us in these difficult circumstances to proclaim your faithfulness and to lift your promises to the weary and languished people around us. Amen.
Thank you, Yanni, for the opening and the word that you've given us. We appreciate that. Now, Agbiz Grain would like to make use of this opportunity to hand over 2 awards to people that has done a lot in the industry. I just want to make sure one of our panel members is online. Willie, can we hear you? Are you online? There you are, Willie. So I don't know if you've if you felt something.
Hello,
but
Jerry.
but we actually tried to make it a surprise. So the reason for the rewards that we want to hand out is for both of the 2 people. It's in recognition of the valuable contributions that you've made and the dedication to the constant improvement and growth in different sectors in the industries where you had played a massive role. So the award for the one person will be in the grain handling and storage industry. And then the other award is for someone that has played a massive role in the broad agricultural industry. And the 2 people that we would like to award today is Willie, yourself, that's online. We thought that you're going to be online at your offices there in Paul, but it seems like you are at the other place at the moment. So there's people standing ready in your office to hand over your reward, but we will do that at the other time. So Willie, thank you very much for the contribution that you have made in the industry. If I'm correct, you are retiring next year around about August, and it will also then be your 40th service year in the group, the Sasco, Pioneer and PepsiCo, that you have serviced our industry. So thank you very much from Agbiz Grain for your contribution in the broad sector, Willie. I don't know if you feel like to comment on this award, Willie?
Jerry, thank you very much. It's much appreciated, and I can only thank my family for their support and for Pioneer Foods that gave me the opportunity to lead our company in the transition from controlled market to free market. Thanks again.
Pleasure, Willie. And then I would like to call forward Mr. Barney de Klerk. Barney, can you get you on here on the stage, please? And you can start clapping for Barney. Barney, thank you for, you joined GSE, Grain Silo Industry, roundabout, if I'm correct here, 2013. And there was a transition to Agbiz Grain, which you also have been part of the whole Agbiz Grain family. You've contributed as a steering committee member, especially on the technical committee at the JSE, where I think numerous discussions that we had regarding, yesterday we had a full discussion regarding storage cost and services. You already retired, although it seems like TWK have kept you already for 2 years. You should have gone, but I couldn't let you go. But thank you for your contribution within the industry, and here's your award. Thanks, Barney. Barney, they're asking if you can we give you the mic. If there's something that you would like to say. While Barney's preparing, and I'm quick on Barney now, I just want to mention something that that I don't know who of you are aware of it, but Barney and Willie started studying together as youngsters at Marties. Now, we're not going to go into what they've done at Marties. At least we know that they've completed their studies. And both of them, after they finished their studies, started in the grain trading environment. So Barney was a hardcore trader, and then afterwards he joined the storage industry. So both of them actually have spent a lifetime in the grain industry. So thank you both for both of you.
Everybody, thank you very much, Jerry. I appreciate the thing you give to me, and I will have a look at it when I'm at the house. I don't want to mention the guy you mentioned earlier, but age first, so that was why he was in front of me. I was more of the academic type of guy, a student, and you know all what they've done. So now to come back to Agbiz Grain, and I was involved for many years in the control board's time, and we went through the Ati Swart committee, and I can remember, maybe some of you will remember Piet Lou, and he was a type van 'n harregat mannetjie, and when we one day things doesn't work so well in the Ati Swart committee, and we get tea time, and I see Piet is the Moeren, and he wants to grab one of the guys, so I take him away and say, Piet, kalmeer. But those days was quite interesting, but I want to close with, when you do this, when you go around in the country, especially in the English towns like Adelaide and Bedford and those, Cradock, there's big country clubs. The guys got a golf course and squash and tennis and everything. And those guys, they love one another and they play golf always. But there was one guy, wasn't so popular in the club, but he's playing golf and everybody has to bear him. And then the Lord saved them, and he died. And at his funeral, die kus het nou daar gelê by die funeral, en when the things start going down, one of the members crying out, he can't help himself, he cried, "Get in the hole!" Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We had the saying in the industry, or when we had our Agbiz meeting, Barney het altyd 'n tyd vir ou grappie. Thank you, Barney. We're going to miss that. Before I'm going to give it over to Wessel to do a short introduction, I just want to say thanks to the sponsors. I want to give thanks to the following platinum sponsors: AFCRI, Grain Management, John Deere Financial. The following gold sponsors: APSA, Stargate Scientific. Silver sponsors: Nedbank, NWK, Sinves, Standard Bank. And then the following bronze sponsors: Agri Enviro Solutions, FNB, OVK, Ronan Solutions, Santam Agriculture, Sentraal Suid Koöperasie, SSK, VKB, WAM South Africa. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correct. Is WAM, there's a WAM music. So I'm not sure if you're in the music industry, but WAM, thank you for your contribution. Then I welcome Wessel to the stage just to give us a short introduction of today's theme. Wessel, thank you.
Jerry, thank you. So I just want to give us to get everybody on the same page what we're going to talk about. So we decided for the second session today to discuss the following, and that is the future challenges and solutions, which refers to the access to stock, the concentration risk, and price convergence. Now, that is three very important aspects, because the grain handling and storage sector, just take this into consideration, we jointly, Agbiz grain members, handle and store about 70% of all the grain and oilseeds that's produced. And jointly we own about 98% of all the JSE registered sites. So we are a very important role player to make the market happen and that the market functions very efficiently. And there are specific JSE rules also that we have to adhere to make that happen. And over the past, not only the past 3 years, but earlier there was always this, we get this criticism from the rest of the sectors. We're not doing well, our service delivery is not good enough. Willie will tell you, if you want to have access to stock, you don't get that access to stock when the carryover is very low at the end of a marketing year. In a price inverse market where you're going, you commit yourself at higher prices and get the stock maybe a month later or that you should have. And the price convergence between the cash price, the spot price, and the futures price don't converge at the same time, which is very important. But I think we opened this discussion, and we're not only going to discuss the problems, but we would also like to hear from the sectors the solutions that you propose, so that we can have a better understanding of each other and to go forward. Now, in the last session, the previous day, we talked about the margin pressure that the storage sector experiences, and maybe that is one of the reasons why we don't see investment in outloading capacity. If you don't see that outloading capacity investment in terms of long-term storage, we don't talk now about short-term storage, silo bags and bunkers, then you don't see an increase in outloading capacity that will actually increase, will improve everything for the market for the better for everybody. So, Chris, we've asked Andre to focus from a trader's perspective on the challenges and expected solutions that they experience from a trader's perspective. And then we asked Derek, is the market failing the producer? And Derek said, but if the market's failing the producer, the market's failing everyone. Willie we asked Willie to focus on ensuring a successful procurement through the JSE futures market from a buyer's point of view. We don't have AFMA on the stage. AFMA is busy with their own symposium or conference this week. And then, Annalisa, what is needed to ensure a sustainable futures market from your side? Maybe you can share some insights on that. But as experienced yesterday, sometimes the discussion take its way, and Chris, you're our facilitator. We really appreciate your time. Chris is very experienced. I know we met Chris down with Derek in Sandton when the SAFIC started all these years through. We have a lot of experience, and as a facilitator, I think you can bring very good perspectives, and we look forward to this discussion. You never know where a discussion like this ends, but let's get on. And then the last thing I just want to mention is that Wandile is not here today, he's with Schoeman's Boerdery, but he wrote this book, A Country of Two Agricultures, and he's already sold out 5,000 copies of this, and I need to print again. But this copy is for the contributor in the auditorium and online who makes the best contribution. And I really would like to encourage you to become part of this discussion. You can send Brand Republic the questions. You can even send it to me, and I will forward it, and you will get to a tablet there with Chris, and he will give a chance on a frequent basis to address those questions as well. So we look forward to your participation, and thank you all for attending this, and also share it with your constituencies so that we can have a very good discussion. Thank you. Over to you, Chris.
Fantastic. Thank you, Wessel. Good morning, everyone. Let's get down to a bit of fun. I appreciate your attendance in person and for online. I was just wondering, with Willie, you're feeling a bit remote. I don't know if it's possible to get Willie on one of the screens just so that we can look him eye to eye as we have the chat. Is that not possible? Okay, so as soon as Willie talks, so Willie, we're going to expect you to talk a lot so we can look you in the eye and see how it's going. I just want to, thank you, Wessel, no pressure for me as moderator to keep this entertaining. But I think if we look at it, yes, Barney, veel geluk. Ons waardeer jou geveelde woorde vanoggend. Baie dankie daarvoor, en maar weer eens baie dankie vir al jou baie lange ure in jou gemoedsrus vir die mark. So ons waardeer dit baie. Willie, also congratulations. I'm really sorry you didn't get that surprise waiting for you at the office, but hopefully you will get that in the post. So the conversation today is really around future challenges and solutions, and maybe we just start by looking at is it the futures market, is the spot market? But before we do that, let's just make sure we understand the difference between the two markets. And because really that sets the scene of how the rest of the conversation goes. The spot market is where we are trading physical grain today. It could be up in Mkhonto, it could be in Paul Petersburg, it could be even in Makwasi, of all places. But that's the physical trade of grain that's happening every day. Buyer and seller negotiating on that. The other market is the futures market, or the afgeleide markt, the derivatives market. And that has been going, thank goodness, for a good few years. There were many doomsayers who said it wouldn't succeed. It has succeeded. But that futures market is giving the market an opportunity to manage price risk on a futures basis. So if you wanted to set the price for December or for July next year, that's the idea and the function of the futures market. But what we talk about today is that price convergence component. And why is that so important? Is because when that futures contract gets to the expiry month, so we trade for December, and we're all looking forward to Christmas, but for the futures market, when we move into the 1st of December, we want that futures price to reflect what's happening in the spot market. Okay, so that is what when we talk about price convergence, and why that is important is because that keeps the integrity of the futures market intact. That component, the futures market and the spot market getting to the same level. Why is physical delivery and why is Agbiz Grain and its members so important to the market is because without the ability to have storage, you can't have physical delivery on the futures market. And so maybe just bear with me one step further. How do you manage that integrity of the futures market? Is you've got storage, and now the futures price is maybe trading higher than where the spot market is. How do you get that futures price to fall? People start to sell on the futures contract. They sell on the futures market with the intention to physical delivery. By them selling, the futures price will drop and get to the spot price. What do we say? Hallelujah, we've got price convergence. Okay? In the same way, if the futures market is trading too low and the spot market is a lot higher, the market will start to buy the futures contract to get it to trade at the same level where the spot market is. And that, in a nutshell, is price convergence, and that is what keeps the futures market honest, ultimately, that delivery mechanism. So today, we have many legends with us on the panel. We have had some tough conversations eye to eye over the years, but I'm hoping today we'll keep on with those honest conversations around how to improve the market. But so it's not only about challenges today. Maybe if you've also got the insight, what is our future challenges? Let's put those on the table, but then also throw out any solutions that we've got on the mix. So Wetzel has kindly gone through and really introduced everyone by name. Andre, you've got Derek, Annalisa, Jerry, and you've also got Willie online. And their resumes are all online. It always makes me think of Rod Gravelet Blondin and the story he would tell about he attended a farmer's day. And he was being introduced, and the guy was going through this speech of he's got this degree, and he's done this, and he's done this. And a farmer in the back of the audience stood up and said, "Guys, we came here today to listen to him, not to breed with him." So I'm not going to give you all their breeding stock, but rest assured you have quality individuals with us today. And so really I think in that respect, I'm going to encourage you to ask as many questions as you can. For those guys who are online, who are coming and going, I challenge you, please, whoever sends the first question, I'm not going to give you the prize because I can't adjudicate that, someone else is, but the prize is Wandili's book, so keep those questions coming. At the moment, what is this? What is the fastest land animal? No, that's not the right question. So, Andre, let's get going. I think from a trader's perspective, from Sikota, you're obviously representing a number of large, small traders. You, as Sikota and your members, are critical to the functioning of the market. You're adding a lot of liquidity, a lot of value, but where? So maybe the question is, with Yanni's word, languishing. That was an English challenge for an Englishman as well, languishing. Do you think the market is languishing? Or where do you see the challenges currently in our space?
Thank you, Chris. And first of all, thanks to Agbiz Grain for organizing this event, and thanks for the invitation for Sikota to be present here today. Our traders plays a very important role. We believe they facilitate about 80% of the formal trade in South Africa, including the imports and exports. So you can imagine that the movement of grain throughout the system is very important for us. And if you're asking me what the challenges are for the traders, definitely I want to summarize it with one word and say infrastructure at present. So when we talk about infrastructure, we obviously have the storage facilities, which I'll come back to just now. But then we also have the movement, the road and rail movement of grain. And then you have, with exports being so important and imports, you have that efficiencies in the harbour, moving the vessels in and out of the harbour. But coming back to the storage facilities, which is what it's all about today, the access to stock is one of our critical components when we're looking forward, and one of our biggest challenges. It has changed over the recent years because of the deterioration that we've seen across all infrastructure in South Africa, but also because of other reasons such as external factors, load shedding, bigger crops that are being produced by farmers that have grown much faster than storage facilities and so on. So when you do a transaction, it is critical in that transaction the buyer would insist that the trader represents him with a contract that specifies when that product should be delivered, whether it's on the local market or on the international market. And for the trader to honor that contract, he has to have access to the stock in the silos. So whatever his contract or his relationship with his storage operator is, and whether it's just through SAFIX or JSE, or whether it is a over-the-counter direct transaction with a storage facility, that component of the contract in how he will access the stock is critical. It's not the ownership of the stock, it's the possession of the stock, and to access it and the ability to move it within the time frame that is necessary to honor your contract to the processor or to the export market.
Got you. So so the possession of the stock is critical. So even though you've got it stored in the storage sites, you know that you want to be able to call on it. Is there a golden bullet in a sense to say that, you know, you want X number of days when you can access that? Or is it a bit more of a practical, you have to appreciate there's practical challenges to it? Do the traders appreciate the two sides of it, or is it really just focused around how do I get my stock?
Well, I think in a way there is a golden bullet in the sense that when you pay for the stock, that price that you pay, and you referred to it earlier on in your introduction, it gives you an indication of your ability to access the stock. So if you do it through the JSE, for example, that price represents not only the going price at that moment, but when you get to the delivery month, it inherently tells you that you should be able to take possession of that stock within a reasonable time frame. So that reasonable time frame is something that the industry can negotiate, and I guess we have many different opinions about that. But that should be standardized in a certain way so that you know that what you paid for, because that's why you're paying a certain price for the stock, that you will be able to get that stock within that time frame. So you should be able to access that stock, outload it, and deliver it on the counter side of your contract to the processor or to the export market, wherever you intend to move that stock. So it's not just an open-ended thing. You have to be sure that you can access that stock based on the price that you've paid for it, because the price inherently tells you your ability to access that stock. And often, if it's an over-the-counter transaction, the silos will be nominated in that, maybe nominated in that contract, and you know that you have that ability because you have a certain trust in those silos in terms of the efficiency. If it's through the JSE, it's a bit more open-ended, and therefore there's a standardized approach to accessing stock through the JSE, but the concept is still the same. You will be able to, or you may be able to pay a premium for that stock, knowing and understanding that you'll get that stock within a certain period of time.
Brilliant, and I think I like your, regardless if you're trading as an over-the-counter transaction, a bilateral agreement, or you're trading on the JSE, your expectation is you're going to be able to access the product. You want to be able to source it and be able to move it.
Yeah.
Got you. Derek, I guess the question was already posed to you. Now, is the market failing the farmer?
Chris, who are you asking?
I'm asking Derek.
So the answer basically is it really depends who you ask, and because I can't other than explain it in this fashion. We all remember the late Dr. Kit Leclue, and we embarked on this transition into the free market, and he kept speaking about the market being immature. You know, our market is still growing, and even I struggled to understand the concept, but now, you know, as the market has grown, as things have developed, you kind of understand. And we had a situation in South Africa where we had an extremely well functioning system under the regulators. The trains worked, the silos worked, everything was efficient. And for a number of years after the transition, there was still momentum of that efficiency. and that is depleted over the, it's deteriorated over the years, and that has brought certain problems to the fore. And those problems, the market needs to address those problems. So if you ask me to answer the question directly, is the market failing the producer? I would say definitely not. Because if the market was failing the producer, then it would fail totally. What is a market? A market is an opportunity where two parties come together and they do a transaction. And without one of the parties there's no transaction, there is no market. So it's inconceivable to think that the market will fail one participant in the process. So is the market failing? In certain instances, the market is lacking of efficiencies. It's lacking. And the entire market sustainability is built around one word. And Andre mentioned it, and you'll know in my discussions in the market over the years, the one thing that will make or break or that will cause our market to still be here tomorrow is integrity. What does integrity mean? It means when a farmer sells his grain, he needs to know that he's going to get his money. And obviously in timelessly. When a customer buys the grain, he needs to know that he's going to get his grain when he needs it, how he needs it, and guaranteed quality. So it all turns around integrity. And it's been my experience that our futures market in particular has stood the test of integrity in a number of occasions where there have been serious defaults, where they've been they've been sorted out. The market has managed to. You haven't had customers. I'm not aware of customers walking away. Big incidents of customers walking away saying, "I'll never use this market again because it doesn't work for me." So that's why I say to you, I don't think that the market is failing the producer. From another angle, as a farmer, I started my career under the controlled market system and experienced quite a level of frustration. I was afforded the privilege of taking on the production risk, but I was denied the privilege of taking on marketing risk. I asked somebody from the maize board, Peter County from the maize board one day, I said to him, why don't you allow me? It was against the law for me to trade my own grain. Why don't you allow me the opportunity to do my own business? So he said, well, because farmers can't do it. I said, rubbish. So from that perspective, personally, I would defend the market with my life, because we are far better off in a free market system than what we are in a controlled market system, because the market will sort these things out. Like Andre was talking, there are these issues, and that is the focus at the moment. Access to the stock is now coming out. We've got the silos, we've got infrastructures coming down, and who's sorting it out? The entire industry is going to sort it out. So that's the market maturity that Kit Litley was talking about. As the problems come, as you deal with them, as you sort them out, the market becomes more efficient, the integrity stays intact. So no, the market's definitely not failing either of the parties in the market.
Excellent. Thank you, Derek. Thank you for that. Anyone in the audience who feels different? I just put that question out there in case you were thinking of nodding off, but no one feels different. It's going to be tough to get a debate and an argument going here, because, but good, thank you. Don't let me know you had your chance to stay there. So, Willie, you're online there. Hopefully you're going to start speaking soon so we can see you still awake. Willie, do you have a difference of view and how do you see the market assisting you as a major buyer over so many years?
Chris, I mean, we are buyers to utilize the grain to make our final product. So we're not trading the stuff. We want it on time, obviously. We want to know the price, what we're going to have. And we also would like to see that the grain market keep sustainable, that we can guarantee supply over years that's coming. And also, we need to utilize the technology that is available, and that, for instance, why not implement GMO technology in the wheat industry? South Africa is a net importer of wheat. And there's also other countries like Argentina, Australia, New Zealand that are investigating that. Why South Africa is not doing that? We must also have, and it was also mentioned earlier, that we must look after our infrastructure, and what Derek also mentioned, that the infrastructure is under pressure. Andre also mentioned about that. And I think it is time that we get the infrastructure back on track, and that we can utilize that and enhance our business and becoming more export competitive on final products.
Thank you. Thanks, Willie. Yeah, maybe I'll come back to you a bit later on the GMO wheat concept, just to see how things are going. Just getting everyone some airtime here. Annalisa, thank you. Good to see that we've got one female representative on our panel. Here to all the ladies. I guess the question is, you know, in terms of the futures market and the important role that it plays, there is already a question, and to the good soul who sent it, I can't see the name, there's no name attached, talks to about the changes that the JSE recently introduced, or recently is now 2 years ago, around the 25% access to stock. So maybe give your thoughts around the futures market and what the JSE has been doing to make sure that integrity of the JSE receipt is managed. And then perhaps just explain to everyone what this 25% allocation means.
Okay. Am I audible? Okay. Clearly I am. Good morning, everyone, and thank you to Agbiz for the invite and giving us the opportunity as a JSE to also come and represent and speak directly to the market. Chris, your first question was just around what the JSE is doing around the integrity of, I suppose, the JSE certificate. We've done a couple of things in the past 2 years, of course, in partnership with the value chain, I suppose, traders and silo operators as well. We've done a number of things. Most of them speak to, am I still audible? Okay. Most of them speak to how we monitor and what we get from silo operators. For example, we get silo operators reporting on a monthly basis the level of stock that they hold in their silos. So we get visibility of what's sitting on the JSE silo certificates. We get visibility of what's sitting on folio as well. So we have full visibility of what's sitting in silos on a monthly basis. And what we do also is to monitor the volume that comes through deliveries on the JSE. And once we start seeing a lot of deliveries coming at the same time, we pick up the call and start calling the buyers who receive these deliveries and try to understand the intention, their intention basically. Is it to outload, or are they going to redeliver back in the market? I'm sure we're going to touch on redeliveries in the market just now. And what we've seen with engaging with buyers or owners of stock, when we ask them what is an intention of, or what are you going to do with the stock, basically, are you going out to load, or are you going to redeliver in the market, or are you having problems in terms of accessing the stock? We've been doing this exercise for about 8 months, and yes, there are nigglies or problems here and there, which we've managed to sort out with silo operators, but most of the time, buyers tell us that they have no problems in terms of accessing the stock, number one. And secondly, sometimes when they do redeliver, it's purely because of market conditions and not necessarily the fact that they can't access the stock. So we've done this exercise for the past 8 months, and what we've also done is to start to engage with traders like Andre and Agbiz to understand what solutions can we put up as the JSE to really try and solve this issue of perception, or a real issue of access to stock. And the challenge there is that the JSE sits in the middle, right? And we have to consider both perspectives. And we've heard different arguments to say Andre has already alluded to the fact that when a trader trades stock, they want to get access to the stock timelessly, and they want a definition of that time, because at the back of that, they have contracts with their own buyers, right? Whether it's for export, etc. On the other hand, Agbiz is saying, or not necessarily seller operators are saying, but consider the practicalities of this. There's load shedding. For hours and hours. Our staff is already working overtime. What are the practicalities? Our silos weren't really built for super outloading or extensive outloading. They're really built for storage. How do we resolve that then? How do we invest in the infrastructure? And of course, there's been talks of the storage rates. Perhaps the storage rates are not ideal, or are not really, they are low and can't really help in terms of capital investment. Perhaps we should consider, looking at storage rates, etc. So what I'm saying is we've been engaging with the market. We're doing the best that we can do with what we have. But what gives us comfort is that, number one, we've got visibility of the stock that's sitting in silos. We have access to booking slots as to who is booking to outload, what is being outloaded, also the outloading rate, and that fact that it meets the JSE requirements. That we monitor as well, and we've got good relationships both from a trader perspective as well as a silo operator's perspective. I think I'll stop there.
So the question out there is, tell us more about this change to 20, or the enhancement that there's 25% of stock allocated, or booking slots allocated.
Stock, yeah. So a few years ago, 2 years ago, we agreed with the industry and Agbiz that JSE silo receipt holders will have, is preferential the right word? English word? Priority, thank you. Priority to about 25% of access to booking slots in hedging months, to ensure that there is that access to stock for JSE certificates.
Brilliant. So a follow-up question on that is, have you actually seen the market take up? And I guess maybe it's wrongly directed to you because you're not seeing the booking slots.
Yeah,
and then maybe that goes to Jerry as a question. Start with it. Do you see people, or are you familiar across the storage players that the request to utilize the 25% that's been reserved for JSE receipts, is it actually been requested by players? Willie, I'm going to come back to you as well and ask you if you're using that yet.
Thank you, Chris. To the first question, there wasn't up till now in the AFCRI environment that I'm aware of one of those that has been taken up exactly to the full capacity. And I think it all comes down to what is the percentage of deliveries, and we get different times in the market that you might see more deliveries and less deliveries. So that's still, according to me, have to be tested, and we'll have to see if that's going to realize how it's going to play out. So up till now, to that specific question, I'm not aware of someone that has said, listen, I'm taking up to 25%, so we must give, I want to have preferential before someone else that has booked slots at a certain silo. So the market still has to be tested, according to me. I'm not sure if it happened at one of the other members. Maybe they must just maybe make a comment through to you. If I just jump to the responsibility to the storage industry as a broad comment, I mean, our primary clients in this market start with the producer who's doing the first on delivery. These days, there's a lot of traders that have their own failure numbers with us, and producers deliver on the traders' failure numbers. So traders is also a very important client of us. Then we have the normal trading business. Most of the people that's being presented by Sakota that buy stock to have physical stock, and they buy it in a silo or not. And then we have the millers and the feed mills, the segment that is Willie representing today. So those are the three major clients of the storage industry. Andre mentioned infrastructure in his first comment. out of a storage perspective, I think we can divide it to internal infrastructure. Each and every storage operator do have a facility that needs to be managed. They've got systems, they've got intellectual capital, that's the internal infrastructure. And then there's the external infrastructure that we don't have control of. I mean, the buzzword Transnet and the rail. And we have to manage those two infrastructures to be as effective as possible. For us as storage industry, and taking note of that 70% of the total crop that's on average being produced is passing the silo infrastructure in some way each year. And 70% of grain, some of it is in and out, and some of it is lying longer. And some of it became a strategic position for a trader to have stock at certain locations. So there's a huge mixture of different strategies. And we as storage operators need to understand the different needs and services that people would like to have, that we need to commit. And that's why I think it's very important and it's necessary that you have JSE registered silos and it comply to a certain minimum standard. So at least now, everyone that's trading through a JSE registered silo will know there will be minimum standards that if you want to be a JSE registered silo, you have to provide that services within certain rules. I think we just have to revisit continuously the minimum standards because market needs move, and I think that's part of the discussions that we are having over these last few years, and we must take note of what is the need of the market. For me, it's important to make sure that the minimum standard will always be intact, and there must be something in place that will ensure that we can force the minimum standard. If a storage operator wants to be a JSE registered silo, surely there's value to have that. And that also has a value for the financiers. If you are a JSE registered silo operator, suddenly the financier also add value to that because they are secure of the flow of stock. So for me, there is, out of a storage perspective, we need to define the service levels. If there is a trader or a buyer that really know, listen, my expectation is going to be higher than the minimum standard, that need to be communicated in advance. Because you gear yourself for the minimum standard. And if the higher expectation is being put to the storage operator and they can't prepare for that, then I think most of the time that's where the problems start, because they are not geared actually to handle that. And I believe that people do have the ability to address the higher need. You just need to plan in advance. Out of a storage perspective, it's not news in the market that the storage operators are prepared to run double shift with their personnel, but you need to plan it. And if you know there's a certain need, there's a certain value in a certain contract for a certain volume that need to be outloaded in a short space of period, traders has come to us and said, listen, if you can handle the following outload schedule, we are prepared to pay a premium at a certain point because there's value in us to have that guarantee. But that's something on top of the minimum standard. And I think there's a lot of questions in the market and maybe confusion that our clients must put to us and say, listen, here's our expectations. Let's revisit the minimum standards. And if there is a higher standard than the minimum, that's something that needs to be taken off record directly with the service provider and see if we can make an arrangement in that environment.
Very well done. That's clearly articulated, and the appetite from the storage operators to service the clients. So you've already described all the different clients, and it's a solution that's on the table is if you give us advance notice as a storage operator, we can start to plan to make sure you can access your stock. How do you handle the dilemma? So again, if a player takes a chunky delivery off the JSE, and let's say it's 20, 30,000 tons, gets allocate that delivery, how does the typical storage operator facilitate booking slots? Is it on ranked on you give me the most cash, so you always top the queue? How do you facilitate the booking slots in an orderly fashion? I asked some of these questions tongue in cheek, but tell us more about it.
First of all, there's a system that needs to be fair when you've got bookings. And that system takes into account not necessary volume. The guy who has booked for a booking in the system, he's got being recognized, and you have just to follow the process for the booking. So that's the one thing. So there's a system that needs to be fair for everyone that make use of the system. To keep it fair and to avoid additional payments to be made if you suddenly can help me, and the other guy that only need to take one load, but he's actually got the booking at 12 different silos for one load. So you have to take that in account, and you have to stay with the booking system. Again, if there's in advance communication, you can start planning. And within the silo environment where you've got stock at certain regions, now you can start talking regarding different bases, and if I might be able to help you at a certain point where the bookings is not that high, but there's going to be a cost because the stock is not necessarily favorable. So there is opportunities on the table if we understand the need of customers, and that as well might differ from storage operator to storage operator, because the mixture of stock might not necessarily for a specific need that favorable to help in that point in time. So again, regarding booking, I believe every storage operator do have their systems, and we trying to be fair by using the system to avoid someone getting in, try to push in front of the row, and everyone had their chance actually to book loads. Again, if there is a specific request, rather talk in advance, and we can maybe make an arrangement with some of the guys and move them to go and outload at some of the other silos. Again, then it starts getting to a negotiation and see if we can get to a solution.
Got you. Thank you. So, Willie, how do you see that? Do you agree with that fairness approach? Can you? Is there a practical solution that if you give your requests in advance, that you see the storage operators assisting you?
Yes, I negotiate direct with the storage operators to where, if I want to uplift some of my stock and it's huge amounts, then I will be in contact with them and I negotiate with them the terms and conditions and outloading, and then also put that on the transporters, so it doesn't help that the storage operator are willing to help and your transporter doesn't pitch up at the silo. Yes, we do that, but also, and I also use the storage operations for other stuff where I have pre-agreements, say this producers will deliver on our name in your storage facility, and that is the agreement. Yes, we utilize it.
Okay.
Chris, can I come in here?
Please.
Just referring to what Jerry said and maybe relating to JSE. So I hear about making arrangements separate and costs that are being paid and so on. But I think we've got to just take one step back and say, what value do we place on the JSE and the transactions that's going through the JSE? Because we see it that, yes, there are minimum requirements, but for one thing, we think the minimum requirements are not enough now and should be increased now. Especially in terms of at the current scenario, the 500 tons a day outloading facility or minimum condition relating to the bigger silos. Because if you don't, if you start doing transactions outside of the JSE in terms of making your own arrangements, that in one instance is okay, but you also need to be able to depend on the JSE and the stock that you receive through the JSE, so that you have confidence in that you can access that stock in the prescribed agreement time through the JSE rules and so on. If you don't do that, you're going to start doing all the transactions outside of the JSE. You're going to use a JSE price as a reference price, and you're going to start negotiating outside transactions and costs. So we say, let's rather try and increase the requirements of the JSE, make sure that there's certain minimum conditions there for accessing stock, because already what we've seen is that the liquidity on the JSE, which we all use to hedge our transactions, which is very important. So we all need the JSE for future hedging to put together the transactions, whether it's the farmers, whether it's the traders or the processors. But we've seen that liquidity is going sideways at best. And while the crop, as Wessel referred to it yesterday, has doubled in the last 10 years or so, so liquidity is static. And the moment you see that downward spiral of liquidity, less people are going to start using the JSE. So why do less people are using it? Because that whole concern around the access of stock, possession of stock, is a big factor. I think, certainly from a trader's perspective, we would rather pay more for the storage cost in terms of what you charge through the JSE, but then with the additional guarantees. And that's really what we see in the market now. We see that Jerry says AFCRI can make a certain arrangement. Sometimes there may be cost involved. So there is a demand from the buyer side or the owner of the stock to pay more so that he can access that stock and that he can do it within the time frame necessary.
And Elisa, I can see you chomping to answer to that, but, do you want to go first? And then, sorry.
I just quickly want to make a onto Andre's comment, and this slot exactly in what we discussed, actually, some of it yesterday. And I think we're going to have to engage in these discussions to find the balance, because now we're getting to a point where if we would like to increase the minimum standard, there's going to need to be certain investment in the infrastructure at some of our silos to uplift to what the need is outside there, and how we're going to finance that. But if the market there are willing to say, listen, this will be fair to increase the storage tariff with a certain percentage, but then at least we need a higher minimum standard. I think there is room to enter into that discussion, and that slots directly into part of the discussion that we had yesterday, that there's fine-tuning needed in the market to make sure that we are enabling the necessary investment to keep on providing the increased service levels in the market. So I think I take your point definitely, Andre, and I think there's definite room to revisit some of those minimum standards. Yeah.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. Happy to facilitate. But just Andre, to go back to your point around the liquidity in the market. I tend to differ a little bit in terms of the liquidity and perhaps the volumes that's traded on exchange. We've been seeing growth, although it's not magnificent growth, but we've been seeing steady growth over the years. I think we grow between 2% and 4% every single year since 10 years ago. So last year we traded about over 3.5 million contracts. So we do see the growth. And also when just engaging with traders such as yourselves, it's not really always pinpointed to access to stock, the fact that not, I suppose, sufficient volume is coming through exchange, but the fact that there's initial margins as well that have substantially gone up because of the market volatility globally that's affecting that. it's become, I suppose, expensive, slightly expensive, and some other people do not afford to trade on exchange anymore. So it's not always the fact that, there's no access to stock or the exchange is not a trusted market, etc. There's also other elements that go into that.
Can I, Chris, just...
Derek?
Oh, sorry, no, I forgot. Sorry, Derek, please go.
You're always in the middle, though, Derek.
In the thick of it. So, Chris, I was sitting listening to Jay, and then maybe it's just my farmer background that, get back to something practical.
Yeah.
It's all good and well saying, as a silo operator, I'll make arrangements, we can deal with it, we'll work overtime or all that kind of stuff. Let's put on the boots of the long position holder. So he's gone out 6 months ahead, he's gone and hedged his position, he's gone bought stock. He gets delivery on the delivery date. It's only randomly allocated then. How on earth is he going to make arrangements timeously? He needs the stock in his mill in 2 days' time. He knows what the delivery date is, and so his edge works out to that. It's practically impossible. So it's a matter of the market. What I'm seeing and listening here to today is exactly that market growth that Dr. Kit was talking about. The free market will sort it out, because you're hearing the buyer saying he's prepared to pay to ensure that he gets his stuff. Well, then the storage operator must step up to the plate. If you want to do the business, then you will sort your facility out. You will be able to service the needs of your customer. We came from a regulated environment where, as I said, everything was working. So we come from a mindset of assumption that it's all then working. And the silo operators, in all fairness, they were in a comfortable position because they were the silo operators. They called the shots, and the customers just accepted because that's how it was. That's how the system worked. We're in a different world now. Now the customer says that, and the silo industry needs to step up and service the customer. Otherwise, you're not in business tomorrow. Simple as that. And we see that. The silo that I deliver at, Nooit Gedag Silo, is not a SAFEX registered silo, 12 kilometers from our farm. When we started out in 95, 96, I built my own storage on the farm because they couldn't service my needs. Today, I hardly ever use my own storage because the deal that I can do there is just so much better. The silo business has stepped up, and they put in an extra facility last year. They've more than doubled the capacity there. They did make a mistake, though. They doubled the storage capacity and didn't double the handling capacity.
Nothing's perfect.
So the trucks will. I would send a tractor send a load to the silo at 6 in the morning, and he would return at 12:30 in the afternoon. 12 kilometers from our house. Yeah. So that again is subsequently changed. We said to them, listen, this can't work. So now, the outload capacity has dramatically changed in this past season. So that's free market. That's how the free market works. It will fail. If the participants don't step up, it will fail. I'm saying it won't fail because we need the market. And Andre's perfectly correct. We need the JSE market. It must be a deliverable market. It must be a market with integrity in order to have the price discovery. We will have chaos if in the absence of that, if it's only spot trading throughout the whole country. It will be absolute chaos. Thanks, Chris.
So Annalisa, tell us a bit around the deliveries at the JSE. Have you seen those numbers, those volumes taper down? I know when I think back, the JSE was delivering 25% of the crop, so 4 million tons. I think that's less now, but is it still, what's the tonnages? And then maybe speak to also the point around, so there's the access to stock, which is on the issue, And then there's the access to the JSE as a hedge. And I don't know, that is the dilemma that you referred to. You're often, as the exchange, sitting in the middle between the requirements of the trader versus the storage operator, and make it even a more complex middle. You've got the financier on the one side also wanting to leverage the ability to deliver on the JSE so that they can offer the best, cheapest finance in the market. I think chatting to the two large financiers last week, South Africa is really fortunate to have some of the best competitive financing rates around. But for those guys to be able to do that, they leverage off the fact that they can use JSE as their counterparty risk, the clearinghouse, the JSE, and the ability that they can go to deliver. Maybe share with the audience the dilemma around access to stock and access to the market, because as you raise the criteria for minimum outloading, what does that do to the accessibility?
Yeah, so I mean, we've done the exercise earlier in the year. Most of the people in the room will know. But what we found is that as soon as we start to increase the requirement, especially when it comes to outloading, we would potentially lose a significant amount of silos that are registered within the JSE. Again, which goes back then to speak to price convergence. So if we don't have sufficient number of silos that are available for physical delivery, what does it mean for price convergence? So these are the kind of considerations that we are making. And maybe going back to the stats, Chris, as you alluded to, I think last year deliveries were about 4 million, but that also includes re-deliveries. And then really the re-deliveries, the concept of re-deliveries is the fact that if one is allocated stock or randomly allocated stock, they have the ability to sell back that very same stock to the market. So basically a silo certificate can be tendered over and over again on the JSE. And again, it's a number of factors. Possibly the client doesn't want to outload or want a better location that's more suitable for their operations, etc. So that's why we start to see re-deliveries in that space. But compared to the number of contracts that are traded on exchange, it's still, physical delivery is still between about 2 to 5% of what's traded on exchange. So really still the platform of last resort when it comes to physical delivery. The action and the big chunk of physical transactions happens outside of exchange when it comes to the physical delivery.
So Annalisa, maybe a question. If the JSE had to see a significant decline in deliveries, do you think you would have a different approach then to the minimum requirements, or would you spend time looking at what's causing those limited deliveries? Because I think the question being posed, and Derek highlighted, is if the price convergence isn't there because there's no delivery ultimately, bearing in mind the JSE was designed as your buyer of last resort. Does your word, and that buyer of last resort is only if you can't pick up a premium do you go to delivery. So if the basis market is working really well, which hasn't for many years, maybe it's a forward-looking insight that we actually won't see many deliveries, and it's no fault of the JSE's requirements. It's a fact of the maturing of the basis market. I don't know. I see you shaking your head. Anyone disagreeing with that? Because maybe we start disagreeing first. Huh?
If I may challenge Annalisa just on an assumption that we will lose a lot of silos. Let's take the business case. I mean, if you are currently a registered silo, and that registered that creates an opportunity for participants to use your facility, and the requirements go up, and suddenly, well, you know, is it good business to just stop trading there? Or, so how many silos will we really lose? From a silo industry perspective, I can understand them cautioning that we will deregister. So sure, there might be some facilities that are inefficient, you know, that are inefficient inherently. But I think that this is a function of the free market. I think that people will make the business case like they're doing now. They're increasing outloading capacity. They are improving the situation. they might deregister reactionally now, but they'll come back.
Yeah. Before you respond, Andre, go for a talk.
Yeah, I just want to say, Chris, that we have this perception that all silos should be SAFEX registered silos. And that's also what Derek is alluding to. So I don't think that's the case. I think there should be a standard, and if you can't fulfill that requirements, then you don't have to register, or you should not be able to register. And we see that we've started talking about the redeliveries. We've seen that there's about a dozen silos that keeps coming up year after year, where you find these redeliveries all the time. And that previously, when you had redeliveries, one of the main causes, and I'm talking about quite a few years ago, was that the location differential was maybe R5 out or something like it. Yeah. But today, the primary reason for redeliveries are insufficient performance or access to stock at that particular silo, because the logistics component has got so expensive now. And you see those silos coming up. Traders don't want the stock at that silo, and they just redeliver it immediately when they when that's assigned to them. So yes, we should move away to service levels and guarantees, rather than just assuming that all silos should have access to registration. And that'll also unlock, and you refer to the basis trading, that'll unlock the premiums to a much higher degree than what we have. And that'll benefit everyone in the system, the farmer, the traders, whoever is participating, because you'll know that silo can perform, and that you can pay a premium for that silo. You'll get access to your stock in the required time that is necessary.
A fair point. And Liz, I'm coming back to you now. I think maybe, especially around redeliveries and what kind of insights you have around that, I think, again, if you look at, let's say, the JSE taking off and increasing that criteria from 500 tons a day to even just 600 tons, you drop off about 120 silos of the 280, okay? So that's a significant drop of delivery points that can then be used, or again, you're removing that accessibility to deliver on the JSE. So you're raising that criteria, that's good, but what you're then removing is any of that stock which would have potentially, if you needed to deliver on the JSE, it can't access. I think where the financiers, which are a big driver in the open interest, have just cautioned is, and also I think the financiers in this space are very innovative in bringing on-farm storage. I think you guys are working with other, and when I say AFCRI, many of the other storage operators working with private sector, where you bring on their storage, but you are the actual guarantor of that. So you look to them as the counterparty risk, but you're happy to include that as under your brand, so that those sites can be accessible as JSE delivery points. That's another sector where all of a sudden the JSE has new delivery points, where the AFCRI balance sheet, GWK's balance sheet, TWK's balance sheet is all behind that, and that makes the market, you can access it. But what it also means is the financiers are pricing kind of at a different tier. If you're a JSE site, you're prime less 2. If you're a non-JSE site, then all of a sudden your financing rates will change. And I guess maybe Annalisa respond on the redeliveries, but the question, I guess, is the market will ultimately bear the additional cost. As simple as that. Because yes, the storage, the financier is going to be happy with the balance sheet of AFCRI, although that point is not on the JSE delivered site. But if something goes wrong because they're funding Chris Sturgis Incorporated, the dodgy trader, and now they need to deliver that stock, that funding rate is significantly weaker because they need to move that stock to another site. So it just all depends on, I guess, the bank's due diligence on, do they take me as the dodgy trader or not? So, before we get Annalisa, redeliveries, what's your perception around that?
All I wanted to say to Dr. Andre is that it seems to be a perception that all the redeliveries are because of access to stock. And again, this hasn't been our experience when speaking to buyers or long position holders that have been allocated stock. Literally, in the past 7 to 8 months, we've been picking up the call and calling them and asking, what is your intention? Is the problem access to stock? Why are you redelivering? And in our experience, there has been a few issues, yes, but it hasn't been majority of the time that the problems is with the access to stock.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's there's a slightly difference of opinion. We respect that.
Okay.
Derek?
You know, when does it really become a problem?
Yeah.
When does it really become a problem? What Annalisa is experiencing now is in an environment of 16 million tons of maize. You know, ample stocks in silos, good carryouts, and it's great. When we have a shortage year, and there's just enough for the market, you will find, and this is just a normal function of the market, all the prime locations, all the high-value facilities will be used up. That stock will be removed from there sooner. And by default, then you're going to end up with a lot of stock in a Sunny's off silo, for instance, sitting towards the end of the year. So if you have a buyer taking 20 or 30,000 tons delivery, and he gets allocated Sunny's off, and he suddenly wants Sunny's off to deliver, and he needs that stock now, you've just got a practical problem which is insurmountable. It is just true. So it's a concentration risk that happens in our volatile production environment where we oscillate from shortage to surplus years. Thankfully, with the new technologies that we've got on the farms these days, we tend to be more, you know, in surplus positions far more, but we know what climate does to us. So we do have those instances where our market becomes tight. And it's in those instances where we've got to be really innovative, where the access to the stock at that point in time threatens the integrity of the market.
Thank you, Derek. That certainly leads very well into a question that was sent to us around what can the market do to particularly address the concentration issue when we have a tight stock level, as you've articulated. And maybe, Willie, so you're not left out in this conversation, how you've seen these seasons. You have maybe share some of your wisdom around how you've planned for years when there have been tighter stock levels, how you have, because you've been faced with the issue that there's only a handful of silos to get stock. How have you overcome that, and do you have any wisdom for us on what should be put in place? Because the reality is, you're always going to, when there's going to be a tight stock level, we're always going to run into the issue that there's going to be a handful of silos that will have the remaining stock. They've been the weakest bases throughout the year, and therefore we're all going to be scrambling for it. So that won't go away. It's just how do we manage that better? But Willie, your wisdom there.
Yes. Chris, Derek touched the right button there when he mentioned about 30,000 tons in one silo in short years. And that also remains a question how, with the allocation system that Suffolk is following, with the concentration at one silo, and then you have 500 tons outloading capacity per day, that is also not going to work and doesn't gel together. Hopefully, we must enhance and get a better transparent basis trade system. Then I think the basis trade will also help to sort out where the effective silo is or not is. The market will pay a premium if somebody is effective, because we all want to have our stock. Secondly, we also need to address the one of load shedding. Load shedding is upon us, and we must accept that, but it mustn't become excuse that you start paying and not. Where does the co-op try or facilitate that you make up the hours you're losing, even if they charge overtime? And that is what must also be addressed. But outloading, for us, we want our grain to mill. That's it.
I think you've been a big proponent of more basis trading, and I think that will certainly help, I guess, distribute stock quicker and perhaps lessen the concentration risk issue, but it's always going to be there. There's now a flurry of questions coming in, which is good. Just on the point of load shedding, before I start reading some of these questions, what's your views? Should this be something that's absorbed by the storage operators in their cost structures, be it handling fees or daily tariff, or is the generators that they put on site, is that something that is open to free charging? Do you see where I'm going? What's your views around load shedding and the generators that the operators provide?
Chris, yeah, I think it should be absorbed, but of course the cost structure for storage should also be realistic. I think just like anyone managing its own business, you got to guarantee some service, and that you do, and it comes at a price. But if it's transparent and you know that you will guarantee that outloading of the grain, whether it requires overtime or on the weekends or providing it from a different silo, that'll be the business owner's choice, but he must guarantee making the grain available. Unfortunately, I don't think there's been an interim phase where we understand that, this has come, it's suddenly sort of almost overnight happened, all these challenges, and then we're happy with that, but it can't be continue indefinitely. It must be absorbed within a cost structure and guarantees going forward of providing the service that the buyer or the owner of the grain is requiring.
Got you.
Chris, if we want to facilitate the market dealing with concentration risk, then all right. Firstly, load shedding as a particular issue, that's something that's not unique to the grain industry. It's across the South African economy. So the cost of doing business in South Africa has just risen by the energy cost. So and the market will sort that out. Whether the silo operator is going to do it and offer it as a service to his customer, or whether he's going to pass that on to his customer, who then passes it on to the next, or whatever the case may be, the market's going to deal with that. It has just become more expensive to do business in South Africa simply because we don't have reliable energy. But if we want to facilitate the market dealing with a concentration risk, if I as a farmer or as a participant in the market can see timeously where the stock is lying before it runs out. So in other words, the crop is delivered in a 2-3 month period in the year, the entire crop is delivered. Then that stock is, for all intents and purposes, statically in a position. So if I can see where it is, then I know what to manage, irrespective of whether JSE is going to randomly allocate me. If I can see where the stock is, then you will facilitate the market dealing with that concentration risk issue.
Yeah, that's a hot point of discussion around the disclosure of stock levels per silo. But guys, you're
not disclosing ownership.
No, we're disclosing
just where it is.
Stock level, where it is.
20,000 tons in Sunny's there's 5,000 tons there, there's what.
Got you. So, folk in the audience and online, thank you. The online guys are beating your hands down in terms of questions. You have been all very quiet. There's a hand up there. That's good. Hopefully it's a quick answer because I've got a big red times up here. And then we're going to have a quick 10-minute comfort break for you folk who have deserved it. But really, have you deserved it? There's been no questions. Come on.
Deserve it.
Thank you.
I'm hoping that I'm going to get the book. While we're on the topic of load shedding, I would just like to know how much downtime do you have, because a silo is a dusty place, to clean the generators and stuff like that. And then the other question, and both of them are probably very silly, but how does the booking system, can't you, because the grain elevator must upload or unload, and if you can unload 2 people in a row, then that saves more time than if you have to upload and unload and upload and unload. I don't know if that's clear.
Go for it.
A quick answer. The first one to load shedding. With all due respect, we have engineers and we're paying them a lot of money to look in the quiet times. They do their maintenance. So, and that's also part of your planning when there's off time, your available additional energy resources need to be in place so that you can utilize them up fully. So it's purely just a thing to bad planning. If there's downtime, you didn't accordingly plan to the possible load shedding schedules and your whole maintenance plan. Regarding the outloading and delivery, there's different time in your normal delivery season. You will tend to give preference to deliveries inwards, because that is you've got a 3-month time period that you would like to maximize in that time. My take is that when you need to schedule outloading, the buyers understand, and we will be prepared to help them for later time when the bulk of the inwards deliveries is not taking place. And as soon as the inward delivery is being done, then it's easier. Then most of the time you're sitting with outloading deliveries that you can spread. So again, also it's a sufficient process where we plan and we try and to manage the peaks in the season as effective as possible.
Yeah, thank goodness we're not harvesting all year round.
Yeah. Well, why not?
Why not? That would be good cash. Vili, I see
able to
just
upload.
informed your hand is up. Vili, do you want to add something before we break for a quick...
Chris, I must say I agree 100% with Derek there. Where the stock is available, that must be published, and that will make it also more transparent. But that will also help us to run the logistics to your mills on a better basis, because whatever deal you do, you know where you're going to do it, and do a better logistic plan.
For that idea, we know there's some complexities around it, but thank you. Guys, stretch your legs. Oh, Dirk, come on. Okay, good. Now they're going. My eyes are not watering. It's not. Go for it, Dirk. And then, yeah, please keep those questions coming online. I assure you we're going to deal with them as we go through the next session.
Chris, I'll try to be short as possible. I think it's clear that we can see it's a complex scenario. It's not just something that you throw in an idea and it resolves everything at the end of the day, because it's from literally prices to logistics to management of the systems that's in place right through. And I think the key question to all of that at the end of the day is it must be practical. It must be practical to enforce as well. So it must be practical for the silo owner to physically do. So if one changes standards, one must always make sure that it's also still practical to do it. Otherwise, you defy the purpose of doing it. The question in terms from the concentration side is, I could see the moment we mentioned published stocks of each silo, everyone's eyes went up, and if some hairs went to different directions. And we all know for what reasons that is. I mean, it's market shares and all those type of things that start to become discussions. But is there not a way that we can sit and say, white maize, we have 80% of the stocks in 3 silos, or a way of giving the market an indication of what the concentration is, without giving away the positions of the silo owners themselves? Because in any trading scenario, in any free market scenario, you determine your price and you trade your price based on the risk. But if you don't know what the risk is, you move away from it. So we're going to need to put something in place to just give an indication of what that risk is, and then the trader knows exactly how he can manage it. And if you then see the concentration is high, you know, here's a risk that I'm going to struggle with outloading. I'm not going to get the stocks in time, and I need to preempt that in my finances when I do the trading.
Thank you, Dirk. Yeah. So I see a transgression, a baby steps for Sagis is before you disclose all that information you've got around stock levels, perhaps you start to just highlight where the bottlenecks potentially can be. Yeah. But there's a number of questions. Tom, I think you wanted to respond to that.
Not really respond, just another question, Chris. If we're talking about the free market, then everything must be actually discovered on a free basis. And what Derek alluded on to is, if a silo operator has the ability to have a differentiated storage rate and charge the storage rate per location where that location needs a higher storage rate because it's not up to standards or whatever, and that is available, then the storage operator, if it's too expensive, the free market will sort it out. Somebody else will build the additional storage capacity there, and they will do it. But if it's limited, then it comes to a problem. You can't invest because you're limited in on your income streams, but you have to provide the service. So on a free market, then the best thing is to deregister that silo, and then the whole thing with the functioning marketing on the financing side come into place. So there is ways to do that. There is actually ways to change that and say, let's deregister the silos who can't bring that minimum requirements. We up the minimum requirements. The storage operator can charge whatever is necessary in that market. The basis will be traded. If it's a location where nobody wants the stock, then the basis would surely go to a negative in that scenario. And if it's really transparent, the market should sort it out in the long run. But we put certain rules and things in place that regulate things, and we get the operational market, and it's actually working good at the moment, which brings in all role players like financiers, all of that, like we said now. So I think there is room to look at that. My opinion is those are the things that will make the market actually working better. But obviously we must keep what we got in place as well, and we must take that into consideration as well. So to location and to give the transparency in the market where the stocks are, it is a hot topic. And I think everybody agree that the more transparent the market is, the better it, at the end of the day, everybody can make their decisions, which is true. But if there's concentration risk in a certain area, there will always be that. If there's a shortage of stock and it comes to the end of the season, doesn't matter what you do, concentration risk will appear. It will always be like that. And that's something we have to manage. Even if we got more transparent, I think it is something that at the end of the day, it will happen. And by planning up front, if you get delivery, in the system where the rules is known, if you get delivery and you only have time to plan for the next 2 or 3 weeks, or you want to take it immediately out, it is true that you can actually plan in advance and get your things in place with all the storage operators in advance. So if you get delivery there, you can have something in place. So there is planning you can do in advance to outload at the end of the day, because you put in certain negotiations or rules in place for yourself. So I think there is ways of getting past all of the problems. We must just be open about it.
Okay, on that open note, I've been open about it. Let's quickly break. I don't want to be accused by the online guys for not answering their questions in a fair manner. So as soon as we get back, we'll start addressing some of them. Enjoy your break, and we're back in 7 minutes, please. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone. That was a good rush for everyone who is in person to be able to make that countdown. So well done for everyone online. I appreciate the questions are still keeping rolling in. That's good. So I think perhaps not to hold back anything, let's go through and start with some of those questions. I'm not going to give the full details of who is, because perhaps some folk want to remain anonymous. So, but I'm sure Yanni de Villiers doesn't mind reading this question. Let's start with that. Is the question to the whole value chain is, can you handle it? Can you handle it? Farmers want to produce more. Consumers want to consume more. Can the storage industry handle it? Can the transport industry handle it? Can the processors handle it? And can the export infrastructure handle it? In a free market, each part of the chain should react to the chain being pulled by the consumers. Who is pulling the state re-infrastructure? Anyone want to give a view or a comment around that that challenge to us?
I'll start with that one, Chris.
Thank you.
All right.
Nice. I like your appetite. You're eating too much.
I just think that it's not really today's discussion, but it does warrant another discussion, and that is from the storage ex-silo down, especially if he says produce more, that means more grain and more surpluses, and we know how important it is to export those surpluses. So that real value chain from there down all the way to the export harbours, there are big questions about that at the moment. So it's not a matter of can we handle it. I think a lot of work needs to be done before we'd be able to handle that if the volume starts increasing further.
Got you. I think, Andre, and really, hats off to you guys. I know you're pulling along a lot at the ports to be able to help get product out the country. I know Vili would like to change the question around how do we get wheat in. But yeah, I think, again, as a market players, it's not private sector versus government. It's ultimately has to be somewhere working together to get the infrastructure resolved. One team. Any other one wants to add to that? Definitely the attitude.
I agree with both Andre and Derek. I just think that the current rate that we are handling it, I don't know how sustainable it will be. So, I mean, we're taking out of our road infrastructure. So, I don't know what's going to be the sustainability. And we have to take that in account. And with the increasing potential of production on our producer side, I just see that export is going to increase over time with the markets that has opened for soybeans in different directions. I mean, Andre, you can maybe just give a little bit background. You had some of the vessels being outloaded at East London, but with a lot of problems, and it's not that fast at the moment, so it's there, but the efficiency is not there at all the levels. And sustainability at the moment for me is a worrying factor. Taking out everything out of the infrastructure, and it's not going to hold. We're just going to see more potholes if we're not going to keep up the roads, and rather would like to move. I mean, the whole strategy, road to rail, that has been a discussion over years. We just had to keep on putting pressure on that external infrastructure, and hopefully there will be private sector people that will come to the market as well.
Yeah, I can just add to that. I agree with Derek that we can handle it. We'll make a plan, but we actually reach full capacity just about, and there's never something like full capacity. You know, there's always something you can add, loading from skips at the harbour or something to that effect. But since we restarted the export program in basically April 2021, we've now reached that full capacity. So we've added some additional relief by opening up East London Harbour, first time in 10 years. That infrastructure deteriorated over the years, but there's been a remarkable recovery thanks to the terminal manager there and the cooperation of the industry. So this year we're going to export 6 vessels out of East London, and the efficiencies have increased by 50% from a year ago. So yes, there are those sort of plans, but you must, like Derek said, put it in perspective. If we add 1 million tons or 1.5 million or something to that effect that needs to be exported, that's not just 2 or 3 vessels. That is a significant chunk, and you don't want that to be stuck in the inland silos, because that'll impact on prices and a number of things. So yes, I think it needs the cooperation of the industry and definitely more work to be done.
The challenge is there. Willie, how do you see this? I'm in some ways jealous that in a year or so's time, this headache is maybe not yours anymore, but you've had the challenge around the ports. How do you see it? Is it sustainable at the pace that we're going?
Well, Chris, we're supportive of exports. I mean, we need the exports. That's good for the country and that's good for the economy. But currently, how the balance between wheat imports and maize exports and now also soybean exports, that balance must be adjusted. You cannot give the one party the advantage of when your vessel arrives, you will be helped, and when the wheat vessel arrives, you have to wait outside, and there's costs involved in that. So I think the balance currently is not fair balance. It's not for fair practice, but it is. We did exceptionally well with the export program. What we managed to do without rail, I think that is a feather in the cap.
Okay.
Just Mr. Willie, give the farmers reason to grow the wheat in South Africa.
Give the farmers reason to grow wheat in South Africa. That's the message there.
Yeah, but that is why we say, look what GMO did to maize. I mean, it doubled the production, the yields potential. So let's investigate it on the wheat side.
I agree. That's the sum. I mean, the farmer has to have a reason. He's got to feed his kids and educate his kids as well. So give him an economic reason to grow the wheat. We'll grow the wheat in South Africa. There's no reason why we shouldn't.
So this is a question from Yapi, a good friend I've known for many years. With regards to Willie's comment on GM developments on wheat, is the commercial GM importation of wheat allowed in South Africa, or just the seed? And is the correct description GM or strain enhancement? Willie, as our GM expert, is it GM or a strain enhancement? How would you refer to it?
Well, I'm not the expert. I'm just seeing what Australia is doing and New Zealand is doing and Argentina is doing. Currently, our import permits read no GM wheat allowed into South Africa. But that is what we must investigate. I mean, whatever you want to call it, we must investigate it and make it work if it is possible.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing is allowed at the moment. And there's also two phases. It's what they call commodity release, when you can mold the wheat, and then general release when you can plant it. So, I mean, those processes of doing the applications are on the way, but there's nothing allowed at the moment.
Tomato or tomato? It kind of doesn't really matter, but who's driving that process? Who's trying to push that we can allow GM?
It starts with the seed companies.
Okay. And are the seed companies driving that, or they're?
They definitely are,
okay.
But it's a long drawn out process. Yes.
Okay.
Chris, is just a question on that? Is there clear indication of exactly what the yield benefit is? I mean, can we say, like we say in soybeans, we've got a technology levy that farmers pay voluntarily, at least statutory, in order to get access to the new technologies in the seed. But then there was a clear indication. You know, we can expect a 10 or 15 or whatever percentage increase in yield, which farmers can do a calculation on. Is that data available in South Africa, or do we still have to do testing in local conditions to get there? I'm just trying to highlight a timeline before that becomes a solution.
Anyone from the seed companies want to take that question? Or no, don't see anyone. Anyone on the panel have any insights? I don't know, because I assume we're going to benchmark again. If Australia or New Zealand are doing trials, hopefully they will already have some insights into what that yield gain is.
Yeah, all I've heard is that, and read is that in Argentina it's 15 to 25% increase in yield. So.
Okay. Anyone against GM wheat in the audience? Okay, we've moved on. If we were in Kenya now, it'd be a different story. Is there any further development on the grain passport system? Is it practical? How will the industry approach the request from the consumer to ensure food safety and traceability? Anyone want to take that question?
Chris, I can just mention that will form part of tomorrow's discussion. So I think there will be much time available to discuss that in length. So hopefully the guys posting the questions will log in tomorrow and enjoy the conversation tomorrow. And then tomorrow's conversation is all about traceability. So a passport system is going to be addressed tomorrow in the conversation tomorrow. So I think that would be best for that host to join tomorrow.
Thanks, Jerry. So the answer, Yapi, is stay tuned. Don't go anywhere tomorrow. And you're on form. So let me just, I'm going through these. Again, another question around wheat deliveries with regards to quality. Jerry, to you, can the storage operators guarantee grade outloading? I know it's a discussion in the past. Has there been any innovation to guarantee the grade quality on wheat?
Wheat specifically?
Yeah, wheat specifically.
I think, well, at the moment, no. But again, if we understand the need in advance, and it is practical given certain conditions, everything is possible. At the moment, there's not the full guarantee, but I mean, post or put it out there, what the need is going to be, and then we can work around and look at what's going to be the possibility. I mean, there's such huge of differences that has to be taken in account. So I don't want to put it bold out there that it will be something that will clearly be guaranteed. But I think for the moment, we need to handle it by request on request and see what's the availability and what is the volumes we're looking at. So let's investigate.
So again, to that person who asked the question, I can see it's an innovative trader who's probably looking to secure an offtake agreement. So have the conversation, build the parcel, and hopefully we know that Jerry will be able to talk to you as many of the other storage operators. Let's keep it neutral, eh? Yeah. There's a question in the audience, please.
Good afternoon. I would just like to get back to our previous discussion in the proficiency of molds, for example. We talked about technology, she mentioned dust, for example, and operational costs. Wouldn't it be a solution to install components, types of machine inside of the molds to make it more proficient, that saves you cost on energy, and with better bulk material handling equipment. So that will make your outloading faster as well. And then I was just, for curious sake, I want to know with your, what is your wastage? With, do you have a percentage on that with offloading or outloading?
So Willie, we're going to ask you as our milling expert to say what you're doing in the milling side. Do you want to answer that question first? Did you hear it?
Well, on the milling side, when we receive the wheat, we grade it obviously, and then we offload it, and obviously it is within the grading regulation. We don't offload if it's not within the grading regulation.
Components that you use with the material handling to save costs work. Because like now, excuse me, like, okay, we are paying more for electricity at the moment. So if you install operational components like machines inside your molds, which brings down the material handling costs, wouldn't that be a solution to cutting down costs?
You see, I think where Willie's going is because they're already receiving a graded product, which is already cleaned. He does not, his hope is he doesn't have to do too much cleaning or processing. He's buying the spec. So the component, I guess, is at the storage operator, when they're doing intake, is there any innovation there that cleans the maize quicker and new technologies. Perhaps that's the question to the storage operators. We know Willie runs a tough shop and he's under pressure from PepsiCo, so that's good. But on the storage operator side, do you see more innovation on technology around, so it's not even just worrying about intake or outloading. Now you're seeing, what are you doing to make sure the product is cleaner?
Again, it's back to what's going to be the demand of the customer. So we have within the grading specifications, we take the product in, and that's how we're going to outload the product as well. So if there is a need for a service to do an additional pre-clean, again, you'll have to go back. You're going to have capital investment to put other cleaners into the process, and there's going to be an additional cost. I think we have some of those requests. We've done the calculation and say we can clean it up to a certain spec, and then the customer need to make the decision, is our costing, is it going to be worthwhile for delivering it at a certain spec and for in the process further.
Thank you for your time.
Chris, I think also to answer that, what I'm hearing you saying is, can our mills not be more efficient? That's the basic question. I think the milling industry in South Africa has been very competitive for a long time. Although it's quite concentrated, there are not a large number of mills, but between the mills that exist, and I'm a farmer, I'm not a miller, I'm just looking at these things. But they have to be efficient. If they're not efficient, they would have been out of business already. So they would have been the first ones to deal with the load shedding issue, because when a mill shuts down unexpectedly, it's not a matter of just turning the switch back on. You've got to clean out all that equipment. It's a massive issue when a mill shuts down unexpectedly. So they would have dealt with that issue already. So I'm pretty sure every manager in a milling facility, his focus area would be, how can I make my mill more cost effective every day?
Willie, do you want to add anything else to that?
What we we implemented generators, yes, coming at an extra cost, but it's right. I mean, downtime is milling time lost forever.
Okay, got you. So everyone, we make a plan. Is there another? Barney.
Chris, I just want to mention, I don't know how many people in this room is born after 81. Can you maybe put up your hand, please? All right, okay. Now those people, these cement silos you see when you're traveling, most of them was built in 81. So they're almost 40, 43 years, almost my size. And maybe you know it, but those days the silos, these silos was designed to quickly intake from farms and to outload by rail, not road, by rail. And that is creating some problems for us. So I was listening what the people saying, and the price converges, what you call, between the spot market and the futures market. But one thing is to get hold of your stock, possession of your stock. Is the other thing to get them at the mill nowadays. And we are lucky up until now, where what is boeverij in Engels? Boeverij. What you're seeing in the metals in the coal side, those lorries going down. The guys say, listen, this is my route. If you put your lorries here, I'll rather burn it or I give you the bullet. That is how it works, and that is terrible. And we as a industry, we must make sure that we forever knock on the government's door about this, and make sure that everything is there's a law and order, that we can have back or get back the railway, because you can have access to the stock, but you can't get it at the mill because you're not running with the right carrier. So I think the whole thing is working in a circle. Same then what they talk about the exports and the imports. My friend in the Cape, there's only one thing, that is the money. The money talks. If the money is right, the wheat will come in. If money is right, the soybeans will go out. And you know, we experienced this here for quite a long time in the soybean market, where we much below export parity, because we can't get the stock out of the country. And that is a concern for the farmers, which we, you know, we must take note of. And we, as silo owners, yes, we must pick up our socks for getting outloading correct and so on. And the whole thing they talked about yesterday is coming back to say, okay, if we up the outloading rate, yes, we must do it, but it's going to cost some money. Now we get this load shedding, everything, you know, this is a late tackle from the side, which we haven't seen. So I think the whole industry must keep knocking on the government's door and say, listen, chaps, we had to sort out the thing. We must keep it in place. We must, because otherwise we got, you know, first world silos, but the rest is not first world. And we got first world mills, but the rest is not first world.
Thanks, Barney. I think it's also, you know, it's managing the expectation. And if you look at, Andre, the work that you're doing with members, trying to get block trains loaded for exports, I think, you know, we have to be realistic. It's not that a rail truck's going to go to every single silo like in previous years, but I think we're looking for innovation in the sense that if you can arrange the logistics, put it into a package and ship it out. I don't know if you want to talk a bit on that, the blockchain concept, fill a few trains, fill it up, and then...
block trains, in the old days was 50 wagons on a train. That was a common thing. All the trains moved volume inland and to the harbours in the form of block trains, because it's the most efficient, but that has gone by the wayside, and so we again did a pilot project in running a block train down to Durban about 3-4 weeks ago, just to prove that the concept is still working, because that's by far the most efficient way of doing it. And the cost of logistics or transport down to Durban for the exports is a very important factor to determine our global competitiveness. So we hope that we can get that concept established again. We have to work with industry, with TFR, to see if we can't expand the project. And that'll hopefully make us more competitive at certain times of the year. And also there's other spin-offs in terms of the potholes, I think you referred to it, Jerry, and so on. Maintenance, you know, maintaining the export schedule and whatever else is required in the inland areas, access to roads and to silos. It's not only load shedding, it's all those other factors that are also playing a role.
Good. We wish you luck with that. That's one of the ways of streamlining things. Peter in Cape Town would not want me to ask this question. Is there other hands? Did you? Where? Peter, hang on a second. Go for it.
Okay. I think this is a question that's quite in line with the structural issues that we're talking about. We're seeing the industry get more and more involved in addressing the government inefficiencies, right? We're seeing people putting solar panels up on their roofs. There's even companies now in Rosebank who are, during load shedding, they link their offices to the robots so that they can keep traffic moving. And we're seeing the private sector getting more and more involved in matters that are actually the government's problem, essentially, things that are common good and should be fixed by the government. And I know of people who are starting to now fix parts of their railway line because they do understand that it is a cheaper form of transportation. I know of a company that's actually maintaining the Bella Bella to Durban route because it's cheaper for them to transport their citrus through that way. Is this perhaps the new solution that we have, or should we not as industry succumb to or let government get away with being inefficient, right, by fixing their problems? Because we are feeling the pressure, right? So the market incentivizes the fixing of these government inefficiencies, because if you can get it cheaper to the port through fixing the railway, you would do that. Is the way forward to keep on doing this, keep on fixing these inefficiencies, and perhaps then getting a tax incentive from government, or is the way to go putting more pressure to government, which we have seen is not really very reactive? Where's the balance? Are we getting towards a slippery slope where government is fixing, private sector is fixing government problems because it is affecting our pockets? Or should we continue to lobby in the hopes that things will change?
Thank you for that question. I recently attended Dr. Suleiman from presentation around from Gift of the Givers, and he said, one of his key themes is amazing the spirit of South Africans, that when times are tough, doesn't matter where we are, we all get together to fix something or to solve something. And but that's a lovely loaded question. I'm going to handle my panelists. Anyone, Derek, you're going to answer as chairman. Thank you.
First of all, government has one purpose and one purpose only, and that is to create an enabling environment. They are failing miserably. Simple. Then I want to give a quote that I heard my friend Kali Skuman quoting recently. Where the people lead, government must follow. That's what's going to happen. That's the future of South Africa. We were so, our whole entire mindset was a mindset of government provides. Government has always, Big Daddy's always been there and always done it. Our regulated markets, the entire environment was put there by government. And that's not our future. Our future is where industry, where the population of South Africa is going to take charge and control and responsibility of their future. They will do it, and government will follow.
I just would like to add to the project actually that Sekota arranged with the block of train that was down to Durban. I think that's a type of initiatives where we as in the private sector have the ability to organize. If we can get a few traders together and we have a discussion with a storage operator, like availability of stock, and say, listen, we will all benefit out of this project. Now suddenly we're taking some of the organization and planning out of, example, Transnet's hands. And suddenly they feel, listen, but here's a project that's viable, let's also invest and let's make it workable. And I think that is the new norm. And that's where we can start having small projects. And I think everyone in the market then will see, but listen, there's value in me to work together so that we all can benefit out of these type of projects. I think that is a good initiative where in the past everyone is doing his own thing, but we all now understand if we don't work and collaborate together, the common ground is to get it as cheap as possible down to the harbour, and then we will all benefit out of that. So I think we will have to enhance those type of projects.
So maybe it's not direct lobbying to government, but you can see the collaboration, you can see the commitment from private sector has to solve for an issue. And as hopefully government sees that and is always cooperative and not putting in stumbling blocks. We could have a very different government who tries to implement rules and regulations that doesn't allow the free market to operate. Then it would make life so much more difficult. So we're fortunate government has been consistent on policy and just supported the free market. So that's a common component that they've done well in, but there's many other areas that are obviously where there's lacking.
Yeah, no, I was just going to add to the question that we do need government, that's for sure. So when we address these different issues, it's all in collaboration with government. You cannot do it in terms of the bigger industry. You cannot do this on your own. So whether it is the East London Harbour or the block train, and we have other projects, Sekota as well, like security cameras on the railway line. So those things we do agree with them. What will be our contribution, And we just can't do it on our own, that's for sure. So you need to always work as a team in taking this forward, maybe taking up more responsibility from private sector, for sure. But you'll have to do some more things yourself and not just depend or pressurize them to do it. It'll have to be collaborated effort.
So, coming back to Peter, who's been very patient from Cape Town. He's got a fun question now to you, Jerry. Is if the stock is under fumigation, how can the system, this is JSE/storage operators, help the certificate holder or the owner of the stock to not pay storage while under fumigation? Because it sometimes feels that the stock gets fumigated the moment we take ownership of the stock. Is there a solution to this?
There you go.
Jerry, I know you got the answer for that one. Eh?
Well, I think there's two scenarios. It's really entrepreneurial for the storage operator he's doing that. No, I think the common...
You're joking.
I hope he's joking, but I really hope he's joking.
No, I mean, the rule in the market is when you need to communicate it to the JSE when a silo is under fumigation, so that they are aware of it in advance. So that's the rule in the market. So I think that answered the question. Even though if the specific JSE registered silo is under maintenance, there's advanced communication from the registered owner to advise the JSE, so that at the end of the day there's not being silo sets being delivered at those silos was being taken out for the period that is under fumigation. So that communication is supposed to flow to prevent that instance is going to happen.
Yeah, so we do publish that information on the website. As soon as we receive it, we publish it on the website.
You've dodged the question.
He has on the storage.
do you think there's an indication that, let's say you're fumigating for your first initial period, which is normally around 2-week period, and then you have to fumigate again? Should there be a way that the owner of the grain says, okay, you get one chance. If you don't do a proper job, then the second time I'm not going to be paying for storage. I don't know.
I think to be fair, I mean, if you has indicated a period that we are under fumigation, and there was a problem on the way that the fumigation was done, surely I think there's a case of going back to the storage operator and say, listen, this isn't something that can just keep on continuously. And I think, again, that is where there need to be proper communication. Go back to your specific storage operator and say, listen, but this is out of the norm. I mean, somewhere we need to be realistic, and I think that's how it's supposed to be handled.
But in theory, you're also supposed to supply the product from another side to assist the
It will be
client.
possible, yeah. No, it will be. I mean, it will depend on the situation. You can't just lock up someone and say, listen, because we are in constant fumigation, you can't take out your product. So in theory, you should help that owner of stock and say, because we are having a problem now, we will provide you stock at a different location, and there shouldn't be extra cost for the guy that's the owner of the stock.
Sorry, go for Derek.
Chris, for me, it's Annalisa partially answered the question. So Jerry said that the rule says they have to notify, and they have to notify in advance. So why is the customer saying that when he gets delivery, then he's so what's happening? The question is, what's happening with the information? You're saying it's published on the website, but obviously then it's inadequately published, or it's inadequately transparent, so that the customer doesn't get a surprise when he gets his certificate, when he gets his delivery. So if the rule is there, then the information is there, but then we're not effectively communicating it.
Okay, let's shoot straight. I mean, if the communication is there and the specific storage operator didn't keep to what has been communicated, that's something that needs to be sorted out between the stockholder and the storage operator, because then the storage operator is not keeping to the rule. Yeah. And as we've been discussed, access to stock. So that's something that needs to be sorted out, and that's something that need to be reported. We as Agbiz Grain, as a platform, would like to be aware of that, because we are standing for certain rules. We are all our customers, or everyone that's been part of Agbiz Grain, is JSE registered silo owners, and we need to apply to the rules. Now, it might be that that specific silo hasn't been a JSE registered silo, and then the rules of the specific storage operator will be forced down there. But still, in an environment where you need to be fair, it's not going to be fair to keep on fumigating, and that will be, I mean, that's just purely out of it. In a trading environment, you need to be fair. Then I would recommend that they will enter into discussion and see how they can meet each other.
Okay, thank you. There's still many questions to get through with less time on our side. I think, let me just see, I know Johan from Cape Town has been sending a number of comments and statements. Maybe let me just start to read some of that. We solve concentration risk by increasing the minimum outload standard and associated JSE storage rates, ensuring guarantees from silo operators are secured. We publish stock information of stock in JSE registered silos. So Johan kind of speaking to how that concentration risk conversation. Standardization of the ability to access stock through adjustments to the JSE derivatives contract to ensure buyers can take possession will keep risk takers in the market and protect liquidity. The JSE should list basis futures as soon as possible for as many locations as possible to ensure liquidity remains on the market. Price discovery is transparent and fair access to all market participants is ensured. To ensure access to finance of those locations which cannot comply to the higher outloading standard, allocate an outload differential to deliveries in these silos, equal to the storage and interest per day for the longer outload period of the grain. This ensures liquidity and finance for all. So Johan's suggestion there is to maintain still the less efficient silos who outload a slower rate, just add this differential then that captures a longer turnaround period. JSE fairly determines the JSE storage rate to be applied to the JSE registered silo, ensuring the silo operator is fairly compensated for their responsibility of providing access, possession of the delivered stock, ensuring there are appropriate remedies and penalties for non-compliance. That's from Johan from Cape Town. I think, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to it. There's many good proposals that have been discussed. I don't know if anyone wants to add to it. I think Johan, in full transparency, we saw your previous messages around really the big fear is how do we maintain the liquidity of the market? You want role players to have confidence in the market, confidence in the delivery process, and so that means that this continuous evolving of the requirements. Anyone want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think Chris does speak to what we alluded to before. What do you guarantee in the changing environment in terms of infrastructure and all sorts of new challenges? What you as a service provider guarantee is critical for downstream in the value chain. So we have to revisit that topic over and over and make sure that there's a clear understanding. And that's what I think Sokota is generally asking for, is more guarantees in terms of that service, so that you can exactly know what you're going to get, because the price, and if it's a SAFEX JSE price, then that price, but just in general in the industry as well, you need to get what you pay for, and that comes hand in hand with the service and the guarantees, and it affects the liquidity. So there's many knock-on effects in the industry, and we have to keep on visiting that subject.
Yeah, so that's going to be a continuous work in progress. I think just bearing in mind, Quibus, also just we're in your hometown, Quibus. Stock records in silos may not be tradable, as it may be funded stock which is carried for traders and who already has buyers for the stock. So I think Quibus's point alludes to when you start publishing stock per silo, you need to be mindful. If you're trying to create the impression the stock is available, it might not be. It's held by someone, it's not tradable. Just to be mindful, that is another complexity that comes with publishing that information. And maybe, Dirk, to your point earlier on, is how do you narrow it, and you start with when there is the most risk of concentration, because we have tighter stock levels, that's the only time you really start to publish information to the market. Then, Jerry, before I hand over to you to start seeing how we wrap up, let's see if we can handle one of the main issues of concern from the processing fraternity entails insect infestation on deliveries, especially wheat. How can this be addressed in a coordinated fashion? From Nico, who's going to quote you and print your comment. So, Jerry, how do you manage this and coordinate this insect infestation on wheat? You can't ban the insects; they're around.
No, well, there's a few solution to that answer, and it's a lot of answers, because there's different conditions in different areas in each period of the delivery period. So I think there's not a quick answer to that. That's something that's an operational a fact, that you need to manage your quality in your silo. Some of the storage operators do attend to that with inloading. Some of the storage operators only when they load out. So there's different practices in the industry. And everyone as a storage operator that know what's their responsibility to provide the quality that they need to guarantee, need to manage their stocks management accordingly to at best for their clients. So there's a few alternatives or solutions to that option, and that's every storage operator's decision how they're going to manage that operational issue.
Got you. Then, getting closer to wrapping up, I think we need a more transparent physical grain trading system. This will give the market a clearer indication of basis value. That was from someone who wanted to be anonymous, which we've maintained. The other question was around, so what is the JSE's take on the development of the private industry with regards to electronic basis trades platforms? There's many of them that we're mindful of. So maybe if I could, Derek, you got your hand up, but I'm going to ask Annalisa for your comments, and then I know, Willie, you've been quiet. I'd like to hear your voice again around the basis platforms. I know you've been a big supporter on that, but first, Derek.
Because I think the industry knows really well that the farmers in particular have had an issue with the differential system and the environment that a published differential brought about, and the discrepancy basically is between what the actual cost of allocation was as opposed to the published differential. So that brought about, and at one point in time, the farmers had actually mandated Grain SA as an organization to do everything in their power to get rid of the differential. Okay, so that was a specific mandate given to the organization, which simply, fondly I hope, which simply is not practical. It's not sustainable. You can't sustain a market without referencing the price. You won't be able to have price discovery. So we got then the farmers changed their mandate and said, well, in that case, then go and fix, ensure that the differential is then correct in the first place, or ensure that basis trading takes place efficiently and transparently. And there were years that went by where we were frustrated at the market's sort of inability or to get this going, to get it actually physically working. And then I think Basis Link was the first one that came up and actually started getting some liquidity, to where I was very excited the other day that should the JSE come online with their basis futures contract soonest, we will have no less than 4 basis trading platforms that are actually trading. So now you collate the information. If we can put a platform together where where we can collate all that information, and the farmer can pick up his phone, or the customer can pick up his phone at any time of the day, and you can see what a basis is, and you create that transparency. We're actually a little further down the road than what I think the entire industry realizes at this point in time. So that to me is a very exciting development in our market, part of the growth to, the move to maturity in our market.
Yeah, just quickly, Chris, I think, of course, there is a place for these platforms in the market, cash platforms in the market, as the same as there's a place for JSE and JSE deliveries. It's a good thing. And I can't really see anything negative coming out of that. The more the merrier.
And so when will the JSE list its basis futures? When does that envisage?
On the spot.
On the spot. Let me say soon, because legal is still busy looking at the contract, but I'm really hoping it's soon. It's really final tweaks.
Good. Final tweaks. Watch the space. It's coming soon. Willie, basis platforms. Can we put you on the spot? Are you actively participating on them?
Yes, I do. And I'm waiting for the basis futures, and that will also show us where we mark to market it every day, so it will make it much more transparent.
Good, thanks, Willie. So the challenge to Annalisa and the JSE is to make sure they got the basis futures before you retire, eh? So no pressure.
No,
on
definitely.
That
Please.
So I think what we're trying to do is let's see how we wrap up some final comments. I'm going to hand over to Jerry to kind of do that. We've got some other items on the program. Again, thanks to all the sponsors today. From my side as moderator, I expected more questions from you, but you did liven up, so thank you for that. For the online guys, you were amazing. You certainly have typed up a number of them. In the interest of full transparency, I know, Johan, you had a few more comments that you would like to have expressed, but we'll try and bring that up into my wrapping up comments. But to the panelists, thank you. I was expecting a bit more aggression, but you guys have also shown that you've been around for a long time. So thank you. Willie online, I appreciate you enduring us during grain trading hours. I know this is where you make most of your money, but thank you for being online. Jerry, Annalisa, Derek, Andre, thank you so much. Much appreciated. Let's give them a round of applause.
Thank you, Chris. So I think, are we going to wrap up? Willie, if it's fine with you, if we can start with you while I'm busy, to give every panel member just what's your main take of the discussion that we had today. So we start with Willie, and then for every panel member, Chris, I would also like to have your thought of the day. I've got a few points here that I think is the main issues that we can take forward from here, and if it's not being addressed by you, then I will mention it. So thank you, Willie. Give us your main take of the discussion.
Well, it is positive that everybody wants to make the market more transparent. And obviously, everybody wants to address the outloading issue. And I think it is a positive way of going forward that we make the grain more tradable and more transparent.
Thank you, Willie. Annalisa, can we go down the road?
No problem. And maybe the first action item is to make sure that we list basis futures contract as in yesterday. That's the first one. But also very encouraging to have these open discussions, having the traders and silo operators, especially when we speak about the topic of access to stock. I really hope the comments here and everybody's perspective, was taken into consideration, so that when we resume the conversations with the market, then we start off with an understanding of what are the challenges from both sides, and from us as a JSE, see how we can actually implement and try to resolve some of these issues.
Jerry, I'm very excited about a fundamental change in attitude in the industry. A fundamental change. when we started out on this road, you know, farmers would be protecting their turf and they would be fighting for their view all the time. And industry would be the silo industry, and there would always be this thing. The way we tackle issues these days, the way we approach solving things, shows a common interest to take this market forward. It shows a common interest to preserve this market. I haven't heard anyone yet today that has said anything that is either protective of their own industry or which is negative or wanting to break down the free market and the market system that we've got. Sure, the market isn't perfect. Absolutely, it's not perfect. But it's not failing anybody. So where the imperfections are, let's work together. Let's put shoulder to the wheel. Let's work together. Let's make this market just function better. Thanks.
Andre?
Jerry, yes, from my side, guarantees, I think certainly not only the traders, but everyone is asking for more guarantees in terms of service delivery, and especially in terms of that access to stock, but also in terms of JSE certificates. And we know that it's a small percentage, but that is very important when it comes to the trading the futures price and the price discovery, so that you know what you're paying for is what you're going to get, that you have that access to that stock, that possession as we refer to it. And I think it may require some innovative thinking, but just by example, issuing those certificates at a silo or a storage operator level, that you know that you can actually manage and outload. We did refer to things like the 500 ton and so on. We're not supportive of taking the smaller silos out of the market, whether they are registered or not, but we do require that they should perform according to those guarantees, which is what the industry should agree on. Whether you're small or big, doesn't matter. If you fail, it has detrimental effect. But you can still perform if everyone understands what the criteria is.
Thanks, Andre.
Yeah, so I think from my side, first of all, I have to commend Andre for his socks. Those are really funky. I thought my striped socks would try and match him, but I was told to cover them up. But at least we managed the sock event today. So is it time that we pull up our socks? I think if I have to, the conversation's going. We are already there. We're in the phase. We're pulling up our socks and we're getting our hands dirty. Is it a reliance on government? Is ultimately we are trying to work together. We know we've got a problem and we have to try and find a way to solve it. I think the relevance for me, and tying back to also some of the comments on the online forum, was the JSE, it's not that you have a right to exist. You have to always make sure you remain relevant. And the relevance of the hedge, the relevance of the derivative market is key to the success of giving South Africa an access to manage price risk. So I think it's going to always be a fine balance between, giving you access to the market and making sure you have access to stock. And I think that is, at least the conversation seems positive. We'll keep working on that. But also very excited that, and I think for the JSE fully appreciates that the integrity of the JSE receipt that's issued, working with the storage operators that are committed to guaranteeing stock. We didn't even get to discussing, where we've seen one or two storage operators transgress things. That doesn't happen these days. I think everyone has a full responsibility around issuing receipts and making sure the quality and quantity is always around. And so I think it goes back to Yanni in his mentioning this morning, where there is no vision, there is no future. So I think the vision is very clear. We've got lots to do, but at least we're in the right frame of mind and not letting negativity get us down. So thank you again, Jerry, and thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to close, and there's a lot of points that I've written down here that you all actually mentioned, and there's only 2 points that I would like to add. The one is and for me it's a common point in the broad industry, and also specifically in the storage environment. This is a symposium of Agbiz grain, and in the storage environment, we would like to hear what our customers need. So I still feel very strong that we can still communicate better in the industry and also as storage operators with our customers. And the reason why I'm putting this point there, the technical questions that was put to me to answer today is, for me, it's just a point of there is miscommunication. And we can communicate better to make sure that everyone understands what is the exact reason. So communication for me is important to take us forward and to understand what is the service levels, different service level agreements that we have spoken about. We've talked about we would like to have guarantees. That's communication, understanding each other. I said the main three customers in the storage environment is our producers, the traders in the whole different trading environment, hardcore trading without being the owner of stock, but you still need the underlying product to do that, and then the people in the processing industry. So communication for me, we need to keep on driving that, and I believe we are growing, as you've mentioned, Derek. Then the last point that I just want to add is to keep on intervening with the external infrastructure, keep on intervening with government, and keep on with the small projects where we can take over and help government. So listen, let's try and make it easier for you and move forward. And with that, I want to close. I want to thank everyone. The discussion that we had today link for me with the discussion that we had yesterday. We alluded to some of the costing. The point that we made regarding guarantees will be addressed tomorrow, because tomorrow we're going to talk about the traceability in the value chain. So we can just see here, yes, different service level agreements that we are looking at and guarantees. So I want to invite the people who joined that they will also join tomorrow, and let's give also our inputs in the discussion for tomorrow. So thank you, panel. Wessel, you're going to have still a quick note, and is it, when do we going to get the people from John Deere for their discussion?
Judy, thank you. I want to, maybe let's get up here, so that you come in the camera. So what is important, Chris needs to go. So Chris, thank you. We're going to release you so that you can go and then carry on. The rest must please sit down so we can finalize the program. There's still, we have to give Herman his chance to do his say. Where is Herman? Herman, will you please come forward? And then after Herman talked, we will give you the decision on the book. And then there's 2 promotional videos that still needs to be run in honor of our sponsors that help us. So Herman, please come forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wessel. To Agbiz Grain, thank you for the opportunity allowing us to sponsor the symposium with the other co-sponsors. To the panelists this morning, thank you so much. Very insightful. Good conversation, good information. You might think that John Deere Financial, being involved with the finance of John Deere equipment primarily, why would we be involved like days like these? So obviously the obvious one is, yes, we want to sell more equipment, but that's not the only reason. I mean, there's a deeper reason behind it. On days like these, we have an opportunity to share information with our farmers, our clients. They can see where the industry is going. They can see what's happening in the industry. They can see the challenges, like Derek mentioned. He had one of his tractors standing in the silo queue for 4 hours. So in that instance, we know we need to finance 2 tractors, not one. One in the queue and one on the farm getting the next load. But tongue in cheek, but no. So with that information that we have, what do we do with it? As an organization, John Deere Financial, one of the key things that we focus on is getting personalized financial solutions. How do we do that? If we understand what's happening in the value chain, we can start that engagement with our farmers and say, if this happens in the value chain, how does it change the requirements that you have for finance? And we can use that as a conversation starter and getting ideas what's going to be needed in the next year, 3, 5 years to come, and start working on how we change our finance models. So with that, I'm going to leave you. Thank you for everything so far. I look forward to the rest of the day. Thank you, Wessel.
Yeah, Herman, thank you so much. I also want to mention that we have also our media partners, which is Landbou Weekblad, Plaas Media and Farmers Weekly. And Sindira assisted me today because Sindira listened to all the talks and she get all the feedback from the online questions. And Sindira, Farmers Weekly, made the choice, we must get this book. I'm not going to tell you more about the book, we run out of time. But Wandeli wrote this book, A Country of Two Agricultures, and he already sold out 5,000 copies. So if you're going to get this book today, you're very fortunate. It's also a book that's signed by him with a personal message for you. So thank you, Sindira. So Sindira, Farmers Weekly, allocated this book to Japie Snyman, who asked the most questions and also very relevant to the storage sector. You also get other contributions that's also very valuable. I also like the one that you said, that you made about how we're going to take on government, as we stand in for government. Shouldn't we, how must private sector be involved? But anyway, Japie, you're online. I can't give it to you now, but we will post it for you. Thank you. Thanks. And then let's just sit down for the next 2 promos. Thanks.
Jy huiwer, want jy twyfel, sonder 'n antwoord, 'n vernoot. Staan jy stil, verstrik. Oorval deur onsekerheid, tree jy terug. Eensaam. Verg dit baie inspanning. Kop aan kop, teen die eindlose struikelblokke, veg jy om voor te kom. Jy beer stadig voort. Dit is harde werk. Bloed, sweet en trane. Maar jy huiwer nie. Jy neem die sprong. Wrywingloos word jy bemagtig deur geïntegreerde, moeitelose nommerpas oplossings. Jy neem selfversekerd die sprong. Jy is dit eens met die wat saam met jou reis, wat jou wêreld ken. Jy neem die sprong en seevier, tegnologie wat nuwe bane weer, geanker in 'n trotse nalatiging en gebou op kennis wat oor die jare verkry is. By John Deere Financial hardloop ons sodat jy die sprong kan neem.
With that, thank you. We are at the end of the second day of our symposium. You are all welcome to join us outside for the people that's here in the room for some refreshments and use the opportunity to network that the people that's here today. Thank you very much.